Deadline approaches, time waiteth for no one as we continue here, setting sail under stormy skies and clear skies and even a little bit of sun in the external world here. Welcome back, everybody. Artist Journal, February 23rd, 2024. Broadcasting from the high seas of the imagination in Berlin, Germany. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. And welcome back. So much to talk about. It seems like people want me to comment on the Taschen thing, which I happily will. There's lots to discuss, but with all that in mind, I couldn't help but begin with this incredible work. And I was thinking to myself, like the people that, we talk about the people that don't know what we're talking about here, right? It's become almost a theme of discussion. This idea of the weird, to a certain degree, inaccessibility of what we're doing here. What is very surprising for us within the bubble that speak the language, the visual language of what we're discussing here, which I often kind of frame very loosely as being in what I call the second generation of digital art. And I thought to myself, with this work by Hasdrubal Waffle, they're going to it's going to be back to what are these guys talking about here? And I think this is Hasdrubal Waffle. Surely this is Hasdrubal Waffle. Who else could have made this strange work? Let me just show you. So here it is. And actually it has sound, and it's under the Kujeb Shero page here. And it went on object. It's an edition of 6. And actually we saw this over here. And we've been discovering Cedar Plank is Waffle's other alter ego, many alter egos, but we remember, just to ground this work, of course, this brilliant work here. This is part of almost that Alien series. There's a couple of themes, like, remember this brilliant work? And there's often so all to say, just to ground it. It's almost like I just wanted an excuse to play this work again. But let's go back to our work here. So we have this really interesting work, by the way. Let me play the music for it. And while we're discussing it, it's 3 minutes 30. So we're not going to be able to play the whole thing. We'll see if the internet cooperates here. But you'll get the picture. It just sounds like the Residents, which have come up before. This is perfect. So, again, it's going to be hard to stop this. Oh, well, the internet may have stopped it for us. So I assume that's by Hasdrubal Waffle, kind of a Residents-inspired sound there. So all to say, what is going on in this work? So we heard the music there, and then it looks like a scene from a movie, and it very likely is. Of course, Hasdrubal Waffle watches a ton of movies. What makes this work a little bit strangely different, though, are the distortions here. And I have two theories on the distortions, two hypotheses as to what might be going on here. Just looking at it kind of technically, as it either looks like a JPEG that's been stretched, like manually stretched, but we don't see that here. Or maybe maybe there was a layer that was stretched and then worked on over top. It almost looks like AI. Which I haven't really, identified in a Hasdrubal Waffle work yet. But it's tempting. Look at these great. So now, for those that don't understand what on earth I'm talking about here, it's little stuff like this that you see in the hand of this monster that is being attacked by the two people with basically chicken heads here, with the almost Argus, head of eyeballs here. Again, perhaps a loose reference to the Residents, who would, famously were, anonymous before it was cool to be anonymous, or when it was really cool to be anonymous, and they'd wear the eyeballs with as a head and then the top hat. So almost weirdly, maybe more like just perhaps an unconscious association here. These guys, the chicken heads people, seem to be attacking this monster here with the eyeballs, with like this, 10 eyeballs or 20 eyeballs in the head. And here you see the wonderful distortions here. This is part of, for those that don't understand what on earth I'm talking about, this becomes a source of aesthetic joy for many of us. That in a weird way, this does start to become somewhat inaccessible, because the person on the street is going to look at this and go, this is the front page of the newspaper, the imagination. Like, what on earth are you guys talking about here? But for the people that are looking at thousands of images a week, this starts to become pretty darn interesting, because you start to see interesting distortions here, perhaps in a transform, perhaps AI, perhaps some other way that are celebrated, which is counterintuitive. Usually you're trying to get rid of these kind of what you might, I don't know if I'd call them JPEG artifacts, but this kind of this JPEGization, shall we call it here. And instead here, counterintuitively, somewhat revolutionarily, and even turned beautiful, quite beautiful here, Hasdrubal Waffle is celebrating, or as Kujib, as we should call them, is celebrating these distortions, these things, these errors. So again, often using kids programming, and you see all this delightful kind of painterliness, dare I call it, in the top right here, with these kind of loose pixels kind of flying off. Hilariously, what look like arrows, or almost like spears going into this giant monster here, looking like a 1950s sci-fi. There's this like drop shadow on the background, and then again this really kind of deep. I guess that's a cyan. Look at the wonderful distortion here. Like, once you if you don't find this attractive, let's do a thought experiment and just imagine that you did, and where you found these kind of JPEG fuzzy distortions. Imagine you did love them, and then look again and you go, wow, those are pretty advanced JPEG distortions. And who's doing that? We have seen it a little bit, but not a ton. And here it's being kind of exploited to quite a degree. And you put the music with it, and the chicken heads, everything about it is kind of that rock and roll that we love here. Sometimes I call this the visual arts underground. And, I haven't mentioned that for a long time, that describing things that way. But again, we'll get to the Taschen book in a second, but it really, you do start to feel that way, especially with this wonderful music. But all to say, we need to move on here. Happy Friday, everybody, starting with beautiful work here. And isn't this interesting? So just to so here it looks like earlier in the process, doesn't it? And look at this, again, this wonderful painterliness. Let's even make this bigger as we try and determine what's going on here. It almost looks a little bit like the stable diffusion textual inverters, but I have a feeling it's not that. I suspect it's probably, remember when Waffles ordered in that physical old thing off eBay, like Paint Master Pro or something, this little kid's toy? Again, Hasdrubal Waffles' favorite tools are these kids' toys generally. It kind of looks like something like that. And maybe even, I would say like maybe a picture taken of that, because who knows how you even export out of that. But look at this. Look at this. So while kind of pushing the boundaries of appreciation and aesthetics here, challenging the viewer, which again, if you're looking at thousands of images a week, as many of us do here, starts to become a source of delight, and because it's different, right? And it's challenging us. And then you go and then you look at this and you go, actually, that's still beautiful, right? You see it in the eyes here in this earlier. Almost, as we see, the composition was inverted, and you even see the green, interesting mix, hey? Like, as we go back, Like, look at how much it's changed. Very interesting. And you get that beautiful kind of gradient frame. So interesting there. And that is posted by Cedar Plank, another alias. And there are the Cedar Planks there, hilariously, constantly starting new accounts and everything. 2900 AD. Please keep mints open a bit. Yeah, Illusional is, yes, he keeps it. And the mints are very hard to get. They're very short, kind of reminiscent of Haiti Rocket a little bit. And yeah, another just classic here. So Encore, exactly. So all to say, Hasdrubal Waffle, a.k.a. Kujib, Shero, Teenagers from Mars. I assume taken from a movie or something, but who knows? Maybe made up out of Waffle's imagination. Gets us started here on this beautiful Friday here, where actually there is sun outside. Another magical day, so I will rush through this episode. Very quick thank you. John Cates, again, very like doing glitch in the 90s, sent me this work, this one of one, Portrait of Golden Horse for Pocobelli, Glitch Western. So a massive thank you and quite a delightful work. I've never seen a glitch like this, where it's almost playing with the 3D and everything. And it is Wednesdays. Well, actually, Wednesdays are the horse. It might have been sent on Wednesday, the 21st. So thank you, John Cates. And maybe that means I should send something back, since this is horse trading, Horse Traders Association Horse Art for 2024. So massive thank you, and maybe I'll see what I can send you. Also, big thank you to Ghost Dad for picking up some works there on objects. So thanks for that, Ghost Dad. Glad you're enjoying the Space Odyssey series, and also the 303 there, and the 808. Actually, a ton more where that came from. This is a little it's a little visually loud for me. Imagine this is what happened to me this morning when I opened. I won't play this, but thank you, Paul. The Ode to Pocobelli, which is me talking about who is, talking about buying things in Pole. So thank you, and hilarious. Kind of jolting as I wake up and seeing myself in huge on the timeline there. So let's look at comments on last show. And thank you to LB, who actually accepted my offer there, on only having 2 left. Big thank you for that, LB. Continuing to the comments, Cider, appreciate the big feature. Much love. You are more than welcome, Cider. Always innovating over there. Score, also known as Psycho. Thank you so much for reviewing the exhibition in Shibuya, which I believe is in Japan. The 4 artworks on the signages. Oh, all 4 artworks are Psychos. Wow. There were many amazing artists exhibiting there. So congratulations, and thank you for the correction there. Bazaya, thanks for the shout out, amigo. Great to hear from you, Bazaya, out of Argentina. Santiago Izzacotl. Petitos means small ducks and ducklings. And I think that was a Nuv 1914 work that had petitos in it, or maybe that was a PP Universal. Not sure. Here is PP Universal. This is hilarious. When I lived in Berlin, I used to go to FIDX gym also. It was near Alexanderplatz and Massive. Yeah, I'm sure then it's the same gym. Cheers, Poco. Great show. That is hilarious. Yeah, I call it the People's Gym. It's kind of hilarious. It was the first, it changed my life, FIDX. And the reason why I share this story is because it changed my life, which is I used to try and exercise like many people, and it's just hard to motivate yourself. But they have such good classes there. And they're 45 minutes, so it's not too short, not too long. And when you have 20 other people in the class, I work 10 times harder than I would by myself. Whereas I always say, I'd do 5 minutes of work, pat myself on the back and say, good job, and go shower. Right? So all to say, it changed my life. And I go, yeah, I still go like 4 or 5 classes a week. It's probably going to make, hopefully, keeps you younger, keeps you stronger, which gets increasingly important. So all to say, if you're trying to figure that out, classes are awesome. Rada, always just a delight to hear from you, and you are first in all of our hearts, in so many of our hearts. Yuri J, thank you, Adrian, for going through my humble thread. So a very interesting discussion from Yuri J on AI and this whole idea of, should AI be trying to emulate oil painting? right? Or what are we doing here? In a sense, is the kind of, if I was to restate Yuri J's question in very short form, what exactly are we doing here when we're kind of recreating oil paintings with AI? Is this, what are we doing? And of course, Yuri J, who uses, filters from Photoshop, very much using the tools of the day in the way that the tools want, in very kind of accepting the logic of the tools of the day. And, so for instance, is the only artist I've ever seen using the mosaic filter in Photoshop and it actually looking good and working. That's a revolutionary act because nobody uses the mosaic filter. We've all tried it and nobody, but Yuri J has made it work. Okay, so just to give you context here, just a few cents from me though. I think we can forgive David, referring to David Hockney, for his bold iPad paintings, since there is no doubt he is doing it his own way. But I have some doubt about approach where things are done in a way that you probably know nothing about. Maybe it is appropriation. Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful with assuming. Is sort of how I would start. Let's take this one piece at a time. David Hockney, bold iPad paintings. Yeah, so now, of course, referring to David Hockney working with the iPad and the iPhone, and me basically saying, okay, to use actually as Yuri J's example. But it's basically, the analogy here is Hockney is basically painting like he would a normal canvas, but he's using digital brushes, right? And I've kind of made the point in the past, as well as I think last episode, where to a certain degree, this is basically playing violin with a sampler. You basically have a sampler. I'd argue the phone and the iPad are more of a sampler. You can take any image, you can kind of start to process it. It's kind of more like techno, right? And in a sense, what David Hockney is doing, and it's not to put it down, actually, because I'm a huge Hockney fan, and he has to be given huge credit to working. He's like the first, to a certain degree, like he was doing it before it was cool. Painting on the iPad, and the paintings are beautiful, and it shows the wisdom in his image making. You see it in the works. And there's also one other thing, which is the mark making of digital marks, of digital brushes, is different, which we can also say adds legitimacy to, okay, you might say he's painting with a sampler, Adrian, but at the end of the day, the mark making is different with digital brushes, and doesn't that on its own legitimize to a certain degree? This isn't just kind of redoing the old way of doing things with new tools and kind of what's the point-ish of it, so to speak. So all to say, yes, we can definitely forgive David Hockney for his iPad paintings, and he's doing it his own way. I would argue, though, and again, I come back to Strange Thing, because the elephant in the room in this discussion for me personally is Strange Thing, who's, probably, as far as AI is concerned, has made the top tier, let's just put him in the very top tier of AI art making works, but does use, say, like oil painting and, kind of like Renaissance oil painting style that is emulated, one might say simulated, and so, a great example for us. So is it appropriation? Like, what is going on there? And it's actually, I think, an issue we're going to have to discuss over many episodes. But what can we say just right now about what is going on there? We are basically emulating an oil painting with AI, right? And what we see with Strange Thing, and really I should be bringing in some Strange Thing works, is you're starting to see like the cracks on the oil paint are getting more and more beautiful. Actually, I think at the end of the show we have some oil. I think we have a work by Strange Thing. We almost always do. So all to say, like, we see the cracks in the oil painting are becoming so kind of fetishistically beautiful. They're becoming weirdly a thing unto themselves. So that is one thing. I mean, that's just one of many things we could say. But ultimately, the reason, let's just go big picture here, the reason I think it's forgivable, so to speak, and actually totally legitimate, is a couple of reasons. We receive images from the internet, most of us. Like, as far as most of the paintings we know that are famous, we know them from the images on the internet for the most part. Unless you've traveled to museums and everything, but so we're already kind of dealing with what we might call a simulation or a copy or a representation. In a sense, that's very much what I talk about in the Related Images series. It's very much about the representation of art, right? And how you get different versions of art pieces. So that already becomes fodder for our discussion. And then finally, just on a very bigger picture view, the tradition as it's come to us, oil painting and painting in itself is such a big thing. I mean, you could argue it's kind of the heart and soul to a large degree of at least, art making in Europe, from 1200 to today, right? It is such a central component that it's hard to get, to have a conversation with this and even do simulations of painting. In a sense, I see that as totally legitimate because it's such a huge part of the tradition. And I don't want to spend too long on this, but all to say, it's having a conversation with the tradition, which actually we're going to talk about in a second with comments from RJ on the T.S. Eliot essay. So again, we could probably spend an hour to a certain degree on this. And I also need to put more thinking into it, but I think it's a really interesting question that I think is going to open a lot of weird doors. And I think we actually have to go back to the simulacra and simulation debate, because the final thing that is irreducible and hard for me to let go of is the aesthetic joy I get from Strange Things' work. To use him as the example, and I hope he's okay with me doing that. I get total, as someone who loves Renaissance Italian painting, I look at that stuff and I just go, this is delightful. And I have a feeling a lot of the Renaissance artists, if they saw that, they'd just be like, what the hell is going on here? This is amazing, right? So, no, it doesn't have the texture, but you almost wonder if that will be solved. We're seeing inroads in that with Art Matter. So all to say, it's an extremely interesting discussion. I don't want to close it. I want to kind of open it, so to speak. So I want to come back to that. So thank you for the comment, Siri. Runetoon, how did I not know about your artist journal community until now? Because I only started at episode 300. So you're more than welcome to post links there, new work. Even I posted, we'll see it in a sec. I posted, maybe I'll bring it up quickly here now. Here's the community here. They're Uxine just posting the Taschen books awesomely. Yes, thank you. And it's a way of bringing things to my attention too here, because I always go through this while I'm putting the show together. We're going to look at this work here later. And here's a work by, I think we have this. I'm not sure. This is by Human Boy here. But yeah, just post your work. And then it's just a fun place to have your work seen. Here's another Taschen NFTs. So all to say, I put this, Jazz at the Philharmonie yesterday. Feel free to put stuff like this. I put a tune, put some music. So all to say, a real community I was thinking of renaming it to Artist Journal Fam from just Artist Journal Community, Artist Journal Fam Community, but who knows? That might be a bridge too far. Anyways, let's continue here. Just a few more comments. Wojak, cider makes good eggs, indeed. And there is Trippy enjoying the show, ready to blast off. Take one blast, okay? So off we go with Trippy. Little Cakes, thank you for including and discussing Yuri J's post about digital and AI. So great to hear that feedback as well, Cakes. And so I think it's an interesting discussion. And I think it's one we just have to pursue, because I think it's going to, we're going to get into very deep philosophical concepts, I think, on this one. And that can only benefit us, right? Because it's something that even as digital artists, say making artwork on Procreate, we're kind of, get your oil paintbrush out on Procreate. It's kind of a deep issue. It's kind of prevalent everywhere. Mark making. Should we be trying to emulate physical brushes, right? It's a very interesting question. I'm always kind of all of the above, and primarily if it's working, it's working. Is kind of that's where I start. If I get poetry from Strange Things Works, that's where I start, and then I go, well, why do I feel the poetry, right? So, anyways, very interesting discussion because there's more than one way to do things here. Kel's constantly raising the bar here, Adrian. Loved LB, Alan Moore, and Yuri J discussion. So more on Yuri J. I lay timestamps and bullish yet soberly infused insights on all. Well, thank you for the very nice comment there, Kells. And that's just great to hear. Lips in Black, thank you. Ranix Deer, thank you for the mentions. Glad you enjoyed the collabs with Kuro. Yep, they were burned and re-released on Zora. So very good. So you can find those on Zora. And I actually have news on exporting bridging out of Zora, which is, I found a way cheaper way. Thank you to, I think it was Bulls or Neutro. Lily Illo, always grateful for your energy. Such a great episode. Thanks for the feature. LB, I didn't even see this. I can't believe you spent so much time on your show talking about my series. That's so sick. Thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you, LB. I'll write you after the show here. Epic. It's always awesome to hear from the artists. That was pure poetry, LB. So great work. Chris War, when Warpcast season, I wasn't exactly sure. Like, I have been posting some of the shows on Warpcast, but I know there's these things called frames. I haven't gone deep into Warpcast. If you have ideas, feel free to message me if there's something I should be doing that you think I should be doing. Oh, Cedar Plank, look at this. Okay, so Human Boy, always love the energy you give these videos, especially that intro. Great episode. Thanks for the feature. You're welcome. Cedar Plank, a.k.a. Hasdrubal Waffle there. Great start to the show with the LB SNES works. The Return Twin Peaks, the Twin Peaks piece is exquisite, indeed. Indeed. And Denise, thank you for the comment. I think we have another work from Denise in the physical art section there. So all to say, thank you, everybody. RJ also commenting on the last episode. Of course, we did the whole T.S. Eliot, what is it? Influence. It's not the... Anxiety of Influence, that's Harold Bloom. It is Tradition and the Individual Talent. That is the essay. Finally got around to watching the bumper show 300, the 300 show. Congrats on growing this thing. The consistency is mighty impressive. I was thinking to myself, showing up is not 100%, or it's not 80% of what do they say? 80% of life is showing up. It's like 100% to a certain degree. But anyway, thank you. And so much to think about from this show, especially very much looking forward to seeing how the community goes and what develops from it. Me too. Just like this show, I say, because most communities I've looked at, there aren't actually that many. Like I was actually a part of a couple. I never look at them, and they're just kind of like random links. So I figured if people add music, people add photos here and there, that maybe they just want to share with a smaller group. That's how I feel, because maybe I'm not going to put that photo of the symphony there, the jazz at the symphony, to everybody, but maybe to the community, it's kind of more casual, all right? T.S. Eliot. Main concept, I think, as you mentioned, that symbiotic relationship between present and past, relating also to our AI and oil painting debate. What we should do, what we do should be conscious of what has come before. And as we enter dialogue, the tradition itself changes. The novel idea is not static, but in flux. So the new ideas are not static, but in flux. They're in dialogue with the past. As you say, though, so what? Basically, it backs up the claim that to make art, one has to be aware of all the tradition that one is in dialogue with. It helps. And you don't need to know everything, because nobody will know everything, but I think it definitely helps. And I always kind of ground it in this idea of the big game. If you want to play the big game, it's mighty hard. Again, there is a certain amount of homework that is required, I would argue. And I think we see it over and over with the extraordinary learning. I just finished the Inferno by Dante. I mean, it's just like loaded with the tradition up until Dante's point, particularly in the classics. And does that make the Inferno or the Divine Comedy more significant and important? It does. I would argue. I mean, these are all debatable points, but I think it's like, of course it does. So there's something to be said for it. But let's continue here. As you say, though, so what? Basically, it backs up the claim that to make art, one has to be aware of all the tradition that one is in dialogue with. This seems to me a form of cultural elitism, an attempt to exclude those without a classical education from making art. And this is an interesting... I feel this used to be truer than it is today. Today, I'm not so sure how true it is. Like, put it this way. I think almost anybody, basically if you can watch this show, you can start to get educated. There are going to be lectures just on YouTube alone, or you go to your library and most of the, I'd say more than half of my learning has come from the internet, from the great courses, the teaching company, Wondrium, right? They're all the same company in different iterations of itself. If you want to learn about ancient Egypt, there's no shortage of lectures out there, and often libraries have the great courses. So I'm not sure, because I take your point. It used to be that classical education, and one could still argue to a certain degree, it is kind of like if you went to the right schools it's not something that's kind of spread out. But these days, I think it's actually a lot more accessible. Classical education, if you have the desire, and you can do it almost for free if you have a library, and you can get the Aeneid, you can get the Odyssey, you can watch lectures on it. That's what I'm doing with Dante. It's not like I ever took a Dante class, but there I watched the lectures on the great courses there, or Wondrium, and I'm getting a really sophisticated lecture, series of lectures on it. Anyways, let's continue on what RJ's saying. Interesting, a lot of modernist philosophy wasn't just a reaction to Romanticism, as you mentioned, but also to the birth of mass media, film, paperbacks. Yes, almost like pop culture to a certain degree, interestingly. Essentially cheap and accessible content, so difficulty and inaccessibility came to carry extra cultural cachet. And that is very interesting, and that does actually explain a lot. Like when you think of modernism, you think of T.S. Eliot's work is not particularly accessible. The Wasteland is, there's Greek, speaking of elitism, there's Greek within the poem. I think, if I remember right, it's been probably 20 years, look at Ezra Pound, the cantos, maybe taking that name from Dante or that idea, more than likely. The cantos, all I remember about Ezra Pound's cantos, and I haven't read many, is starting with the big black ship, right? The reference to the Odyssey, or actually probably to the Iliad, where they're sailing off for Troy, for that, I think it was for the face that launched 1,000 ships. I think that's where it comes from, if memory's not mistaken here. So all to say, let's continue. But I think RJ is actually bringing a very important point to the discussion, which is the cause why some modernism wasn't that accessible, and the reason why. And that's actually super interesting. I never thought of it that way. But anyways, I think it's an interesting tension here for our situation. One big plus is a freedom to create and share in a way that is virtually or theoretically open, not closed, a new form of media. But as we throw ourselves into this, we perhaps do so without much awareness of art history, and in particular, digital art history. It's an interesting point. I have a pretty good grasp, I'd say, of art history, but digital art history, what's interesting about it? I've been going to the Digital Art Museum over, in its previous location here in Berlin. I've never been put it this way, generative art, which seems to be a lot of digital art history. A lot of digital art history, weirdly, I would say weirdly, it's a little, I'd say, cool in an abstract. It's a little abstract for me. Sometimes it's a little too conceptual. Where, remember when I was talking about Strange Thing? I almost start with the aesthetic, the poetry, and if it speaks to me, then I try and figure it out kind of after. And yeah, it's interesting, digital art history. We were talking about Harold Cohen last Space, and I don't want to spend too long on these comments. We're half an hour in here. But we were talking about Harold Cohen on the Space, and there are some very beautiful things going on in Harold Cohen's work that I've recently discovered, with the not filling to the edges, just so let's continue. So perhaps we could do a little more of Eliot's notion here of awareness, but not with so much that we tip into the elitist exclusivity of the modernists. For my part, digging into what's come before, what's been done in art with computers especially, is a massive part of the fun I find here, but I'm always aware that there's more I could be doing. But once again, thanks for the show and congrats on the milestone. So I'd be curious to know more about that, actually. I didn't realize that RJ was grounding himself so much in what's gone on in computer art. I'd love to know more about that. Of course, RJ, doing a ton of pastiche and often putting the computer within the work. So all to say, thank you for the comments and thank you for, kind of provoking that discussion there with Eliot. And August Ground replying to RJ, likewise, feels good to see a more in-depth critical apparatus emerge. I feel like we're going pretty in-depth to a certain degree already. We're not going super in-depth, but again, we're keeping that balance between trying to keep this show accessible while being interesting and legitimate to a certain degree, intellectually legitimate, where it kind of matters, at least in our own heads, hopefully. Coupled with erudition and good old-fashioned passion, I'm seeing a lot more writing and reflection, and I'm in agreement, that's true, there's a lot more writing and reflection on what we're doing here just from within it, I think, significantly, and in agreement with Pocobelli, sense that the market is consistent and reflects a strong foundation. And I think that was referring to the market being kind of strong, but if I read that right. Anyways, I was thinking August Ground would be actually a great guest on the Spaces, maybe in April, May. I will reach out to you, August. And this is we already went through this. So this is the community here. So if you're ever looking for places to share your works, I always check this before starting the show. This is in the show. A lot of stuff you'll see here. Airdrop 4, super. That's kind of cool. Freshly minted on Zora. Interesting. So all sorts of interesting stuff going on. So Taschen, 34 minutes in, 36 minutes in. We talk about Taschen. Okay. So Taschen released this book here. Taschen and Robert Alice, 21. So I guess an author, are proud to introduce On NFTs, the largest art historical survey of the medium to date. Collect on NFTs now. Features over 14 kilograms of NFT art history. That's pretty heavy. And 3,000 of the most important NFTs across 604 pages. So I start to kind of get skeptical when I hear... Because we'll take a closer look. We actually got a nice little preview. I'd say, first of all, according to who, I'd say probably Robert Alice. And I remember talking to Lorna Mills, who's actually in this book. And first thing we have to say is huge congratulations to the artists that got in here. It's a book, at the end of the day, it's a book by Taschen, and that's a good day as an artist if you're in a book by Taschen, especially some brand new book on digital art. So that's the first, before we say anything on this book. But I do wonder about these kind of sweeping statements here. 3,000 of the most important NFTs across 604 pages. I mean, it's, okay, so that is their opinion. 437 contributors, 101 in-depth surveys of leading NFT artists, 10 essays from leading writers, art historians, and builders, 7 gatefold spreads measuring 1.4 meters wide. And here we see the CryptoPunks. The book is launched in our extra-large baby sumo range, measuring 50 centimeters tall, so half a meter. It joins publications of artists such as David Hockney and Helmut Newton. So they put a lot of work into it, and it's an ambitious publication. Let's put it that way. Robert Alice 21's On NFTs is available in 2 exclusively limited editions. The hardcoat edition, encased in custom steel sculptural case, I guess that's the 14 kilogram, priced at $1,750 and limited to 600 copies. So looking for some crypto money, seemingly. The collector's edition encased in a Taschen slipcase is priced at $850, is limited to 2,500 copies. Each sold in an edition with, and alongside these editions sit 4 exclusive art editions, each sold in editions of 100 with an NFT and signed print by Rafik Anadol, Dmitry Cherniak, Sophie Crespo, and Osina Chai Art. So I assume these artists here. Marks the first NFT released by Taschen, with an art edition coming with the hard code edition case making for a total. Okay, so a ton of. And here are some from behind the scenes with Beeple and Art on the Blockchain, quotes by 6529. So kind of all the kind of central players here. Deep dive spreads on Murat, Xcopy, and even a tantalizing seed phrase buried in its pages. And of course, we see, really well-known works like The Scribble. And yeah, so on process here. So just interesting. This looks like Beeple, maybe some process of Beeple. Paris, New York, Hong Kong, global book launch in Paris tonight for NFT Paris. On NFTs will launch in the US during 8th to 12th March with an auction at Christie's with a generative project source inspired by the book informing its end papers. Okay, so I think I could read this for... so I think that pretty much covers it. So big launch, and there's Lorna Mills. I'm in this freaking book along with Nicholas Sassoon, Sarah Schofinger, Dmitry Cherniak, okay, and all these artists, Pixelful. So here we are, and many others. So big launch here, and also Rinnyfish, by the way. Thank you, Tash. So congratulations to Rinnyfish, getting a double spread there. Nice work. Looks really nicely done. So here is the book, and I guess this is the collector's edition. That's 750 euros. And so, I mean, what are the thoughts? I mean, it's interesting. It's kind of back to this who writes the history, right? And I guess from a personal point of view, in a sense, this is kind of what I'd call standard fare to a certain degree. I guess Vera Molnar released some NFTs. I mean, it's kind of what I loosely, and I don't mean to say it pejoratively, call kind of more the mainstream, for lack of a better term. It's kind of like this is the stuff that we've been kind of told matters for the last 3 years. In a sense, here are the Fidenzas, right? It's kind of no big surprise here. To a certain degree, we might argue even a touch conservative here. Here's on process. So here's the book, right? There's some Beeple, right? Beeple. And it does make you wonder, I guess the choosing comes from within. It's kind of representative, I would say, of even the Bored Apes, right? So it's kind of interesting because it raises a whole bunch of questions like, what are we doing over here, right? Because it's a completely different narrative, right? It's an alternative story. It's very much part of what was behind this show. I mean, first it was just basically talking about things I like, but very much it's sort of like I see all these great things that nobody's talking about. And interestingly, it seems to resonate with a lot of artists out there. And so it's interesting. So this kind of is a refresher of back to, remember when, at least in my own head, of remember when this was, Damien Hirst. So again, I'd call it a fairly conservative approach. It's not gonna, it's kind of again, what I would call and I hesitate to use the word, but kind of like a mainstream, view on NFTs. Now, I've never read this book, right? But it does make you wonder. I mean, in my world, again, on a personal level, it's basically taking the narrative that we've kind of seen on Twitter that has been, pushed to a certain degree. That we all have to like certain things, which is very much, it's interesting. What is the genesis of that aesthetic appreciation and this, what we might loosely call this, canon of sorts of digital art that's kind of crypto related, NFTs? What is the genesis? And I'd say a lot of it seems to, a lot of it be rooted. Interestingly, I would argue, and again, feel free to disagree, and I'm not here to lord any kind of thinking over anybody, but I would argue it's very much largely the result of market forces and, basically ETH, people with a lot of ETH. Basically, this is basically a reflection of those, collectors, crypto people that started buying, because I don't think there were a ton. I think there were some art people that came into crypto to buy some of this art for sure. But I don't think there was a ton. I think it was more crypto people who were liking the art, and then all of a sudden these kind of markets were made, and then all of a sudden you have the fidenzas going for 80 ETH, right? And I think it was very much determined by crypto currency enthusiasts, shall we say. So, and then it's taking that narrative, which I think most of us are familiar with here, and it's putting basically a Taschen label on it and the Taschen book, which comes more out of the kind of, you might say, the art world, that what we might call the trad art world. And then it's kind of going, boom, here it is. Here are, like, to answer the question of what is going on here, boom, here it is. Here's NFTs, the NFT story, right? The history of sorts of NFTs. Interestingly, maybe not surprisingly, it's just interesting of how different this narrative is from this one that I'm kind of like, have in my head, that I look at and kind of celebrate here every, 3 times a week. Interestingly. So it's just kind of interesting. Now, there's also this store here. So there's a big kind of, they're definitely trying to, there's nothing wrong with trying to monetize it. I mean, publishing's not an easy business, but you see here, 4,000 euros times 100, that'd be 400,000 takeaway for the Rafik Anadol. And again, kind of, Dmitry Cherniak, 4,000, so another 400,000. This would be Sofia Crespo, 300,000, another 200,000. And then there's the books themselves. So they're trying to bring in, some money here. And it's interesting. Like, I looked at their Twitter, and this post got a lot, 161,000 views so far, and it's only a day old, 17 hours old. But I thought to myself, if you didn't make it in here, and you're kind of in this scene, and you're kind of feeling maybe left out, a lot of people in this scene who maybe watch this show or are in this show have the same reach as Taschen at least on Twitter. Interestingly, like, if you go through only 987 views here. That might change after today or after yesterday, because maybe they got a bunch of more followers after that 160,000, but not exactly huge numbers here. Less than 1,000, 5 likes, no retweets. Like, so, I think this, again, another way of putting it is, I think this used to matter a lot more than it does. I think 20 years ago, this would determine the narrative. And I'm not so sure that's true anymore. I'm just not sure that's true anymore. At least not for me. And so it's interesting. And so all to say, congratulations to Taschen, congratulations to the author, and congratulations to all the artists who got in. I guess my, final take on this would be sort of like, but I don't think it's the whole story. And what's important, according to the author, or at least according to the Taschen Twitter account, saying the most, is very much up for debate, I would say. And I'm not sure I would agree. Just for my own personal, and everybody's free to disagree. That's part of what art is kind of having your own opinions about things. But I'm not sure I agree with everything that's being said here. And I think they're taking a big risk, actually. Time will have its own say in this matter. So, as HP Lovebucks, where's Lovebucks? Where's Evil Knievel here? Where is this? So this beautiful work here. So hilarious. So all to say, kind of an interesting thing, and ultimately probably positive. It'll probably bring more attention to this scene, and frankly, to a lot of the artists that aren't in that book. Because if more people get interested in NFTs, that's good for everybody in this scene, in the digital art scene. That means more collectors. That means more awareness. And for those people that dig deeper, there's going to be a lot for them to find here. So let's leave it there. We're already almost at an hour. I'm trying to make these shows shorter, unsuccessfully. Rinny Fish. Last year I had a collab with artist Simo Cell Music, and I just received these magics from France. So Rinny Fish is having a great week here. Look at how good that looks. And there it looks like even the album cover. We'd like to see more of that. Maybe we can see it here. So look at that, going vinyl. So just very, it's always super exciting to see my art on something physical, and it looks great. I'm actually trying to make bags and keychains this month too. Stay tuned. Very cool. Now, hilariously, I mentioned my old friends from Saskatoon, Carrie Gates and John Vaughn. Kiro sends me a note, say, you know, it's crazy. I actually know who that is. And this is from 2010, doing basically some kind of glitch type of video here, VJ. Work here with Carrie Gates. So I'll have to reach out to Carrie. She's got 464 subscribers, pretty good actually. And so just released stuff a few months ago. So it kind of looks like it could work on Tezos there pretty well, or just across the blockchain. And here's John Vaughn and this is Kiro's shop here with John Vaughn's. So that is hilarious. So Kiro had some actually works by both these artists in his shop. So super interesting, and we've seen this work before. This Martin Bruce work sold to Uxine for 0.05, so just wanted to note that. Very cool work here from Martin Bruce, so just good on Martin Bruce there, and congratulations to both. So just on the airdrop here, Pamela Chirone, I honestly can't find words to thank so much. This has generated an incredible change in my life. So Pamela Chirone getting the airdrop there. A lot of the Zora artists got the airdrop. And it was a significant amount of money, a couple $1,000. At least it's probably different for different people, depending on what you've checked off, the boxes that you checked off. But again, Ivan Hugo, Life Change. A lot of these people, I don't know where Ivan Hugo is based. Maybe Brazil. You know, for a lot of people, and I think even people, like, that's a lot of money anywhere in the world, a couple of $1,000s, right? Finally, I did an experiment bridging off of Zora. This was sent to me, I think, by either Bulls or maybe Neutro. This website here, and again, do your own due diligence before you connect your wallet and do all your own research. But I did this, and I transferred from Zora to Optimism, and then you send to Binance from Optimism, just doing ETH. This costed like $1, maybe less, as far as I could tell. So, and it was immediate. So if you're looking for a way out of Zora, to, you know, put some of that money you've made in your pocket, that's a pretty cool way to do it. So glad to see that, because the first time I did it, it cost me $100 to go straight to ETH using the regular bridge. Santiago Ruao, talking with the rocks, looking up at the mountain peak. Available on our Zora. This piece was made by Jada and Santiago Ruao, experimenting in the artist residency at Bosque Gracias. So here's the work, and this is what I wanted to highlight. There's a big artist residency, and I have a ton of images here. Neutro Arts, co-living with 10 artists in the woods and creating during 7 days. Neutro Arts collaborated with the artist's family from Patagonia, Argentina, to take Neutro's collective to a wonderful place just to make art and to connect with nature and permaculture. Neutro is a cultural manager and collective developing new means for sustainability through technology and community empowerment. So here are images. Lucas Ox, Mint Party. So you're going to see a lot of familiar names here. So look at everybody working here. It's almost kind of dangerous, is what I thought to myself. All these artists, these minds together. Because then you get ideas by working with all these people. So very interesting. This looks like watercolors here. Let's see. Or aquarelles, so probably watercolors at. And then watercolor workshop, experimentation with vegetable inks made by Bosque Gracias during the art residency here. Here's Burr Sector painting with Macquee and Mint. So very interesting there. Burr Sector is in the house. Second day. So all to say, there's Burr Sector. How cool is this? Really impressive and interesting. And again, the word that came to mind when I was looking at it, I thought this is dangerous. All these minds together, collaborating, very cool. Xerox, trust the process. So Xerox has been working with physicals for a while, months and months of trying to make a prototype from the physicals. It's been inventive. Excited for what the future will bring. And so here it almost looks like an Edgar Allan Poe type figure. But look at all these. So this is physical work by Xerox. It's looking pretty sharp, is what I would say there. So trust the process. Here's some more physical work. This is Element Lee, Ambiguity and Liminality. So here, I feel like we saw this before. Didn't we see this mirroring before? And there was the one version, but this might be a new one. This was just posted a day ago, so more cool physicals. Laser engraving on cardboard of pixel art by Element Lee, just super interesting. Andre Oliveira, Cebola playing with Onion Vision. So bringing in the mods here to the Apple Vision Pro, I say in jest. So there are the glasses again from Andre Oliveira. Hilarious. FX Hash, so Phoebe Heese and Anna Lucia Codes, Uxine posted this in the community here. You can basically, look, a generative fashion project by Anna Lucia Codes and Phoebe Heese, wherein you record a voice note that is translated into a generative pattern, which is then used to create a unique woven merino wool scarf delivered to your door. So basically your voice creates this pattern and then it turns it into a scarf that gets sent to you. First ever generative manufacturing project on FX Hash. So pretty cool innovation there from FX Hash. So they're still doing things over there. And here is John Cates getting a camera from Donia there. And I follow Donia. And that arrived in Taiwan. So I guess John Cates is in Taiwan. There's another great person for the spaces. This Glitch Western Wednesday. So again, horse traders, horse trading on Tezos. So every Wednesday maybe is what's going on here. So another cool glitch here of a horse. For the love of horses, another cool glitch here from John Cates. And finally, Wizardkin. I'm here to thank Pocobelli for including me in this yet-to-be-made future edition of his journal. It looks like some horses here. This is a very polite and kind gesture to thank in advance, so proactive and aligned with the future. But the reason that brought me this far are the two lives at stake here, I think is what Wizard is saying. So there are the horses. Two of the finest horses are so close to burning. On the other way, they can be closer to a new home that could be warm and comfy. Most important is they stay alive. Meet them. I'm sure they'll be saved. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So you're welcome. So that is on Object here. We'll see if it loads. That is on Object, courtesy of Kin Wiz, also known as Wizardkin, Horsetown, and there it is. Almost got a 3D glasses sort of thing going on here. So very cool for the horse traders. So that continues. Let's jump into the works here. Maestro Yuri J. Gorgeous piece here by Yuri J. So again, Yuri J brought up the whole discussion with AI art at the start of this show, and again, emulating. So here what you're going to see is a very digital approach from Yuri J. As you see, kind of doing outlines here, and then probably on a layer, like a lot of artists do, and then kind of putting fills in different areas here. I guess it won't zoom in anymore. And then putting fills in different areas here. As you see, different kinds of patterning. Kind of get that nice kind of green spray there, but it goes off over into the floor. Kind of noise, a lot of noise in here. And then this beautiful image in the background and this musician playing what looks like almost a guitar keyboard. Almost thinking of the SH-101 there. And some beautiful speakers. So just a delightful work from Yuri J. Maestro. Indeed. Playing with the music theme again. Very cool. 12 Tezos. Edition of 20. And 12 collectors so far. Just minted on February 20th. And we have Zozo. Again, this is why I say, like, it's not the final... What we see in the Taschen book is just part of the story, of course. It's another super interesting Zozo work. Just kind of art therapy, kitchen window, religious experience. I love it. 3 Tezos, edition of 20. That's on Object, again, from XU0XO. And there's Zozo. It's almost like I could imagine this is where Zozo is working from. Very hilarious. Rinny Fish. I don't think we've seen this one. I'm not sure. I don't think we've seen it. Anyway, a beautiful work here by Rinny Fish, just posted on X. Kotoba, dopamine, 10,000% here. So we'll see where that is minted. Could be already minted, not sure. Raton Ladron. This is Nuv 1914, and I think it's like a walking rat. I'm not absolutely sure here. And again, we see this kind of radical gradient style here. Again, look at the pink and these lines here. This very edgy, again, like we were seeing with waffles there, pushing aesthetic boundaries here. Just very, very interesting work here from Nuv 1914. This is an edition of 3, and there are 6 Tezos each. This was super interesting. We looked at Color Color the other day. Another super interesting work from Color Color. Again, this, just very interesting commentary here, taking something from art history, the Warhol Campbell soup, seemingly, and then just twisting the heck out of it in almost a digital way, almost like the Liquify filter or something, and creating this beautiful looking piece, maybe adding a little drawing on top of it, another layer, kind of joining everything together, making it all work. Very cool work. This is on Manifold, soup number 1, 18 of 32, minted at 0.03. So pretty good. Probably bringing in over $1,200 already. Here is Quampa. From a High Place, Microsoft Paint number 20. From a High Place. This is on Microsoft Paint. We'll very quickly see if we can bring this up bigger. Another really interesting piece here from Quampa. So this is the thing. Again, if you were to write, it's hard for me to look at just like I'd like to see, how many artists are in the Taschen book, and you see someone like Quampa. Is Quampa in the Taschen book? You could say that for almost all these artists, But again, it's just, we're not in the province of math and science here. We're in the province of opinion, what I call qualitative science, which is a lot more debatable. We don't have numbers to prove ourselves here. So other than the market. And that is kind of my big skepticism. That is my kind of little concern, you might say, on the Taschen thing, is how much did the market really decide, really cryptocurrency speculators, nothing against it, I do it myself, but how much is that deciding, what ended up in that book is basically my question, right? And at what cost to all the other artists, right? So just, but I think a lot of people kind of already basically know this. And ultimately, I'm sure it's a positive, because it probably adds legitimacy to the whole NFT technology in general. So if, trad art collectors look at that book and then they go, you know what, I can buy NFTs, this is legitimate, that's good for everybody. Because then they get in and then they're going to figure it out for themselves. People decide on their own. These things can be, it's pretty good social proof from Taschen, but ultimately people are going to kind of follow their own, for the most part, their own kind of inner aesthetic calling, shall we say. So here's a beautiful work here. Check this out. This is on floorenfts.io, which kind of feels like mint. This is on Solana. I was going to guess on Zora. This is on Solana. So this is Emilia Fantasia. I think we started a show with Emilia's work because I recognize this very, competent mark making here, I dare say. And there's the lovers in a beautiful rider deck tarot card. And, to Taschen's credit as well, they've put out beautiful editions of Marvel comics. They deserve a lot of credit for embracing counterculture, stuff that's not considered art, traditionally. They embrace it early. So Taschen deserves a lot of credit for even just putting out a book on NFTs. So here's interesting kind of divider here in this work here by Emilia Fantasia. I had to ask the cards, and they're kind of made like 2 big cards here. No gas fees, no platform fees, no bridging or swaps necessary, free. So very cool. So check that out. That's on Solana, floorenfts.io. Always a new platform. Flora Marquez on Zora, Selena Font d'Amour And here is just another really cool looking work by Flora. Kind of feels somewhere between a fashion drawing and Alice in Wonderland, doesn't it? And beautiful painting here and everything. So more beautiful work, part of this Fashion Beast series on Zora. See if it loads here. And here it is. Yeah, so some really nice works coming out of this series here by Flora Marquez. Here is Boo Boy. And kind of an epic work here. We almost see the Saint Sebastian here. But we need a title here. Life in the Big City, kind of enigmatic title. Living in the big city is not as easy as you think, both good and bad. I present this piece to express the problems of societies in big cities. And again, comes with NFT and physical painting, acrylic on linen, 120 by 180 centimeters. So going for 2.5 ETH reserve here. So interesting kind of Saint Sebastian here, martyrdom. And then almost like a mobster with a baseball bat here. So who knows what's going on in here. But pretty nice looking piece from Boo Boy and based on a physical, interestingly. Here's some interesting work here, kind of edgy by Martin Joe. So let me just bring up a couple of these. These are on Zora. This was pointed out to me in the community. I had never seen these before. So this is on Zora. So cool drawings. I had not seen these before. I think they're digital. They kind of look digital, don't they? Just by virtue of the scale here, because this looks like a super close-up of a brush, and then this is kind of more far away. This would be hard to do physically. I assume this is a digital. But interesting question here. And yeah, so I think these are collected by Martin Joe here. And here's another one. Foxy Weaver. So cool series here. This is on Zora. And the account is Monster SS. So cool work from Martin Joe, showing range there. This was posted by Unknown Collector, Seppi Design, Look Beyond. Just a cool kind of retro-looking paper, kind of textures here. And a cool kind of psychedelic illustration, which really is its own category. There's a whole series of artists you could put together in a really cool show there. Jake Studios with another play on the crucifixion here. World is glitching, group yourself into two. And here you see a cool kind of globe in the hand of this person who seems to be in a crucifixion position and chained with a monitor, kind of old school monitor on top and a potted plant and this kind of interesting sprayed background. Very interesting work as usual. This is an edition of one at auction. It's at 17 Tezos so far. And here's Morlacos with an interesting, kind of looks like almost a prototype of sorts. GM from Morlacos, who obviously I follow here, and almost has this kind of tarot quality to it, or Polyphemus there. The one-eyed giant there from the Odyssey you think of, and kind of has all sorts of kind of myth references, but nothing direct, and you're wondering if, is this the princess being rescued by a one-eyed giant? Interesting piece, enigmatic. This is by Buenos Aires Song Camp. Just saw this on Twitter. Thought just kind of a cool illustration. Some cool. Just some cool jazz. Just interesting what's coming up. I thought the cover was pretty nice. Unfortunately, it's kind of small here. But yeah, just highlighting the cool album art as we're in the illustration section here. And here's Katerina Blooming Creation #1. So just a couple of more interesting works here. And here's Blooming Creation #2. So close-ups of the head, basically made with plants. And here's a big leaf for a head. And then, again, kind of a surreal illustration, even kind of some mushrooms popping up there. This is an edition of one for 20 Tezos. Here's another interesting illustration, Gravotopia. I think this was posted in the community. So all sorts of interesting work here. Very interesting piece of ships going out in what looks like a woodcut. Wouldn't this be interesting if this was digital, or if this is a physical woodcut? It's a pretty darn impressive one, isn't it? Is a top woodcut engraved on cedar wood made with... That is impressive. This work made up the series The Narrative of the Impossible. So this is a physical. Wow. Did it sell? Just listed 1 day ago. Pretty impressive. All sorts of talent out there. Recipes for Disaster, that could be in like any gallery in the world, I would argue. As a woodcut, I mean, that is an incredible amount of work and just dexterity and cool composition. Recipes for Disaster, '03. This is by Oh My God, I Drawed It. OMG, I Drawed It. So we have a new work here with a very beautifully colored pool here. And another illustration here with some just interesting composition. Almost kind of like stream of consciousness like here. And what is going on here? Almost like a shot going into a larger glass. Recipes for Disaster '03. And here, Bolt Energy with what looks like this inflatable toy here. Interesting piece. OMG, I Drawed It. Usually going for a lot of money, 25 Tezos each. And how are we doing here? 6 left. So another huge take here. Part 3 of a 10-part series. So we'll be following that one. Eyes Wide Open by Louis Osborne, new one. So here, as the opposites pass into each other here, the blue sadness passes over into the sunny smile here. Nice work by Louis Osborne here. Edition of 100, selling for 3 Tezos. And there are 4 left. Get it while you can. That is impressive. Death Note. This is Uyo 66. It looks like another red and blue 3D work, doesn't it? And here's the book. So there's the upside down cross, Death Note. So kind of an interesting take on the book. Kind of a reversal here in terms of content in the book, Death Note. And this was transferred over to maybe previous collectors, perhaps. Here's Burka Bayram, Bonsai, and I believe, this is February 21st, and edition of 20. So interesting, more bonsais. I've seen a lot of references to bonsais. I'm not sure if there's something going on in pop culture with a big smiley face on it. So classic Burka Bayram kind of doodles in the background there. And this, one going to Uxine, one going to Mech, Art Monochrome, Mike DeFeo, and a couple of anonymous wallets there. 7 Tezos each. Edition of 20. Here's Gloomtube, another classic endgame stamp. And so kind of encapsulating a lot of 2024 here with the endgame. And there is an atomic explosion, maybe a missile or a rocket, and some UFOs that are simultaneously Oreo cookies and satellites. And also these look like ICBMs here. Interesting. Yeah, so just kind of encapsulating the headspace here of 2024 endgame stamp by Gloomtube, edition of 60 for 3 Tezos each, and looking like it's sold out on primary, or at least 40 owners there, maybe holding some back. Gloomtube has 8. Oh, and then people buying multiples. Nice work, Gloomtube. Very nice. The VIP Delice. So this is Wasteman Goldminovich, open edition, only one minted here. And a beautiful juxtaposition here of some McDonald's food, seemingly, and a cigarette. Interesting white background here, and the person seems to be suffering from maybe eating too much McDonald's. And there, the hands are colored yellow by the cigarettes. Interesting piece, interesting choice of background there with the white. Open edition. The Failed Artist number 72, self-portrait. The Requiem for a Dream. So, interesting title. Not sure if that references the movie, which I haven't seen for 20 years, so I don't remember it. A couple of guys fighting. Usually there's a story, though. Salt and Vinegar Chips, and there probably is the artist. Maybe the failed artist is all these people. Interesting treatment of the face here with texture on the outline and then flat on the inside. And here's an inn dripping. The apple never falls far from the tree. So maybe here's baby failed artist, interestingly. Interesting from Wasteman Goldminovich. Here is Kappa Sage as we hit the hour 13. What You Do Not See. And here's Kappa Sage, just another surreal artwork here. We're back to a crucifixion here with, edgily chopped off legs here and then crucified on a Supreme skateboards here. So, and then there's a Kappa Sage in the background there. Pretty edgy work here from Kappa Sage. Another Kappa Sage work there. Interesting bricks. And so cool, edgy work here. And there is Cause It does kind of have that cause vibe to it. And there's the North Face, and there, kind of a different character there. Always ambitious compositions here from Kappa Sage. This is an edition of 1 for 25 Tezos at auction. This is to taste Portrait of Neil deGrasse Tyson at a Wormhole. So we saw David Bowie at the space station. Now we see Neil deGrasse Tyson in a wormhole here with his mind on in between the wormhole. And so cool, another cool portrait here from To Taste with this space series, edition of 1 at auction for 5 Tezos. John trying something different here. Windows Still Life, I thought we should just note this, as John is trying something a little bit more, for lack of a better term, painterly here. Interesting experiment from John here. This is an edition of 25, now selling out at 50 Tezos. So that is impressive. So that is, how much is that? 50 Tezos times 25, 50 times 10 is 500, so 1,500 Tezos. That is a pretty good take. Interesting, brand new work selling out right away, has a ton of collectors here. So cool work from John. Nice variation. I saw a skull maybe at the mall. I bought some things too. It's this Psychofuturist with another just fun GIF here. As you see, going up the escalator there, and all sorts of mayhem here. All sorts of mayhem here. So this is an edition of 10, selling out. A lot of copies, people buying multiple copies, selling out at 3 Tezos, pretty reasonable price. Here's RJ, who we're seeing the comments from. For first they came from our computers, something like if Rubens and X-Copy and Otherworld had a baby. So it's almost like, I'm kind of back to the spectral pastiche. It's almost like, this looks like the Massacre of the Innocents by Rubens, because they have that at the Ontario, what is it called? The ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum. That is like one of their prize works, is that Rubens' Massacre of the Innocents. I recognize this, so maybe put into AI for the source image, I'm assuming, to get all these computers here. And then adding, as he says, almost like some X-Copy kind of noise here in the background. Same kind of jitteriness, even the color there too. Interesting work, interesting mix from RJ. Here's another one every night. So continuing to evolve with this series here. Putting the computer in the mix here. And here is a different version. What did it say? The internet also is a nightmare. So making different versions out of the same structure, out of the same, you might say, kind of art generation, like getting multiple images out of one kind of art, for lack of a better term, session. Although it may take several sessions, if you follow me. Here's Uxine. Thank you. Have a good day. So kind of nice irony here from Uxine with the shopping bag and consumerism with a big happy face on it, and then recycled. So cool commentary, kind of nice and loose here. Beautiful work. I thought this was hilarious too. Probably Wen Lambo here. Really nice, work here. Nice and painterly here. And then, of course, if you click on it, you can kind of see a little bit of the method to the madness here. So again, a nice kind of almost nice painted version of a Lambo there on the matte black. Here's Ed Marola, Dreamer. Is this who I am when I dream? Edgy, another interesting edgy work here. Interesting colors here and larger work here from Ed. We saw a really small one the other day. Interesting brush making, interesting mark making. So here's the Dreamer, part of They Are Dreaming Us, this new series that Ed is putting out. This is only 55 Tezos, edition of 1. Beautiful dithering there. This one was gorgeous too. Tempted to start with this. Green Ginger, Facing a New Hope. I thought this was just a really fun, cool piece here. Interesting background here too with this. Is this a GIF? I think it's a GIF, because otherwise I'd have to hit play. A pretty amazing GIF here. And the sharpness of the pixel art in the middle kind of contrasting with the blurriness of kind of hypnotizing a little bit. Interesting color there too. Just beautiful. Making it look easy. Facing a New Hope. I like the sound of that. I picked one of these up. This is an open edition, 75 Tezos each. 75 Tezos cents. This is Figments by, who's also known as Cap'n. I think there was one of these left when I loaded this up. A really cool work here. by Cap'n. Cap'n's put out some stunning work. Yeah, so again, I'm thinking of the Taschen book here. Buthermore. Here, just another really cool work by Figments. Check this out. Sui Soichi. Rate this work in progress. I think pretty cool. Interesting combination of noise and pixels. Interesting kind of subject there too. Kind of looks like a Sailor Moon type thing. Element Lee, here's something called Hybrid. So almost to the point of abstraction, you kind of see a flower that turns into a snail shell there. 200 pixels by 200 pixels on Instagram. Stay.exe, this is Violet Trip. So interesting, and there you see the cursor moving the head of the character there, almost showing, and then the operating system in the background there, almost showing the process of creating these characters. Stay.exe, 77 Tezos on secondary, selling or just transferred probably to previous collectors. Continuing on, here is Circus Charlie by Chaz. So playing, I guess, I'm not sure if this is a Switch or a Nintendo, kind of looks like a Nintendo Switch, doesn't it? Not positive on it. Some sort of video game console. And yeah, just another cool pixel artwork, edition of 10 for $350 each. Here's Fornax Void with an unusual one, nerve stimulation. Let's see if this plays. Computer fan is starting to go, so no guarantees this will play. Here we go. Interesting, enigmatic work from a very interesting artist, Fornax Void. Electric guitar music usually makes... Oh, music recorded with Ibanez Roadster. Yeah, I was going to say usually makes his own music there. GIF and WAV downloads at fornaxvoid.com. Edition of 1, selling for only 5 Tezos there, interestingly. Very cool. Now, this is braindead.gif, GM. So we've been watching this thing being made, all these different... objects, gizmos. There's still tons of wiring work to be done. There I can tweak with those little blank screens. So still working on this epic piece here. This could turn into an epic work if you start putting, which it sounds like there's going to start being things on the screen here. Very cool. Kind of would hang well with the Gogolitis. Pixel Kefia. This is Kyle Flemmer. I missed this actually from a couple of weeks ago. Just an interesting kind of pixel artwork here from KF. And Pixel Kefie also, and this is for maybe for Palestine there, open edition, and 1 Tezos each. And here is Walk, a couple of works from Augmented Reality, which again seems to be doing 9/11 here with this beautiful noise. It feels more powerful every day. Here's 1026, kind of a similar scene in this one here too. So just a really interesting series. This is going for 3 Tezos at auction. And here is Kurt Hustle Collective with a very poetic work with beautiful music. So we saw the empty airport. Just beautiful music here. Beautiful, beautiful. I wasn't much of a video art guy for the most part. I'm nothing against it or anything, but it just never really grabbed me until I started seeing the Kurt Hustle Collective, and now I'm always excited to see what they're doing, and I love this. Like this empty elevator here, which we never even got to see here. This empty office, this super processed, rich video, beautiful music. There's a lot to like there. Greetings from Sector 9. So we found them. They are playing with the machines here. See you on the other side, Junk and JNK. It's JNK and Terry Visual. There they are. Greetings from Sector 9. So I bought the first one that we just looked at, the video there, and I got this, so I think you get that as a result. This was posted in the community here. Inumium Sky. So this is some big tapestry that I had never seen before. And I guess this project is kind of finishing up. I think it has to do with the blockchain in terms of its mechanics, I think. But interesting kind of epic tapestry here by Inumian. So just something different here. Kicked off in 2021 with its 23 unique counterparts, following throughout the years intertwining to form one digital tapestry across time. Over 1,500 hours spent. Well, we're going to have 1,500 hours spent here if we don't speed it up, but very cool work here. Thank you for posting that in the community, whoever posted that. Dr. Version and PP Universal collaborating here. And so interesting collab. And let's see if it plays. Computer is starting to protest on me. Here we go. Almost looks like a crown of thorns, but with all this different imagery, kind of experimental work. You see PP Universal's patterning there. Very interesting. Look at that. Beautiful textures there. Here's Mumble Boy Ceremony. And so cool title here. Thinking about Joy Division again. And here, let's just zoom in a little bit. Again, you kind of get the sense of physicality to this collage, combining digital and physical, I think. But this seems quite digital, this edge here, and these edges there. So interesting combo. Very cool work. Some more collage, but kind of. This is probably a photo of two negatives by Bosque Gracias, who did the residency, Go to Fair and Shoot. This is 10 Tezos, edition of 1. If you're looking to get an edition of 1 of a Bosque Gracias, here you go. And here's another one, edition of 2. This one's 10 Tezos, called Eagles. And again, these are original coloring in this box of negatives, film negatives that Bosque found in a shed, probably near the art residency there. So just really, really, really cool work. This was interesting. So we know Kota Nakazono. I'll show you Kota's work in a second. The tabs have disappeared on me. We've gone past, but I'm bringing it up in a second. But here's the new one. Then we'll look at some of the old ones if you don't know. Interesting kind of experimental work here. So we see the cone, interesting. But of course, we know Kota Nakazono from these kind of abstracts here and everything. I guess Kota was working here with this series, kind of playing with process of these softwares, what look like process shots to a certain degree, or screen record of working within, these 3D, softwares. Pretty interesting. So all to say, keeping it interesting, Kota Nakazono, image processor by Ricano, taking I think my dad would love this piece. This is a Minolta, old Minolta camera, and then disassembling it here in an animation. Edition of 5 for 5 Tezos each. And here is Eliab. It's called Liquidations, Flood and Fire. Just another interesting piece here coming across the X feed. This is on Object, and this is 10 Tezos and edition of 4. Continuing on, Santiago Ruao with a different kind of abstract here, GM. So interesting piece here, different shapes, but totally recognizable, kind of combining those sharp edges and soft gradients. And this was super interesting too. I think this was posted in the community. So I'm, as you see, I'm using liberally from the community. For those that are trying to figure out how to get on the show, it's the easiest way is to just start posting new work. Don't spam it, but just post your work if you want it to be at least seen within that community. So newraphael.work is the website. I'm not exactly sure. Raphael Rosendahl. Open, close. And part of this looks like is responsive. It adjusts to any screen size. So pretty interesting. So this is, I guess it's here's full screen. We'll see if it works. So yeah, so it just makes it exactly the size of the screen. That is hilarious. And how great is that for NFT if you have a TV to display on? That's pretty cool. So new Raphael there. Luis Andre Gama with some fractal works. Changing the colors a little bit. Interesting colors. Here's another one, more interesting colors. Again, no 3D, no AI, no movement, just recursive colors trying to trick your brain. So interesting indeed. confusing my brain there. And here's another one. So interesting works here. Interesting colors from Luis Andre Gama. Again, working with fractals before. Kind of looks still like working with fractals. Not sure. Techno Making, GM. This is minted February 22nd. Kind of interesting work here. Kind of looks like a glitch ROM, but put through maybe some video, perhaps. GM. Just a cool piece. 3 Tezos, edition of 10. This was sent to me a couple of weeks ago, Overmelted. Friends, and a glitch ROM of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Kind of a fun one, different take on the glitch ROMs here. Thank you for sending that to me. Glitchtown Arcade, Glitchtown Quiz Show. And here's Family Feud with the character falling through the floor and ceiling here. Interesting piece. This is 99 cents, edition of 30. And here, we saw this earlier. This is Santiago Ruao. We saw this in the first post in the comments there on Bosque Gracias and the Neutro Art Residency. So here it is on Zora. So this is the cool thing about these collaborations. You put all these minds together, all of a sudden Santiago Ruao maybe is putting things through different processes, making different kinds of work. Here's DJ Kiro, Granger, so an animated abstract from DJ Kiro with some video glitch processing. This is a Tezos, edition of 7, one sold to Macro Mitrai. Meatball, give Macro Mitrai a follow on Twitter. Only has a few followers, so most of the posts get hidden. Kiro.eth, Meatball, so another really cool, love the kind of big static, mostly static kind of splotch on top. Cool contrast here. That's on Zora. And here's Klaus, composition 148. So a couple of more compositions here. Again, working with the circle and some of these almost like the pulse lines here. Here's the circle again. Beautiful color, composition 147. Beautiful soft blue there. Beautiful combination. So 1 of 1 for 21 Tezos. And here's Renki, Oka. So new work here from Renki, who's keeping things interesting. Another animated abstract, a lot of processing here. Edition of 1 and not listed yet. This is BI66ER, maybe bigger, and this is not AI. So I think I was saying Bigger's work was AI last episode, and Bigger corrected me on that, I think on a retweet post, which I missed there in the intro. So here, this, I guess, is CGI and just like some digital art. Interesting piece by Bigger. In my kingdom where there is no victory, I will only wait for death. 100 Tezos. Here's Santiago as we get into AI-influenced works. We have a couple of abstracts here. And as you see, just a ton going on here. I just think of how different the my blockchain art book would be. When I see Santiago's name there, having done so many works. Not the Song of Nature. So here, a few more works here from Santiago, beautiful kind of AI abstracts also here. So again, when you go up close, almost has kind of a physical digital collage feel to it, doesn't it? So very interesting work, 50 Tezos, edition of 1. Here's Ile, Unbridled Kiss. And as you see here, a horse with some patterning, maybe for the Wednesday Harlequin and Equine AI, made with M props. Here's another one, kind of nice and painterly here. I love this stuff. These textures here, let's take a closer look if we can. Let's take a closer look if we can. I think that was full size. So that's Pastoral, Blue and Violet, and we'll take a closer look here. Yeah, so nice kind of painterly works of horses by Ile here. Looking great. That's an edition of 1, and that was sent to John Cates. So I think I better get hip and maybe send John Cates as part of the horse trading series a work there. Here's Lily Illo, so a few works here. So here's another interesting green here in this Architect in Chairs series with a cool kind of deconstructed chair. Love this piece. This is part of None 32 by 32. So this is going to be in their Art Bees gallery. Really cool work that I hadn't seen before. Let's see if we can make that bigger. Yeah, look at that. So, it's hard to dismiss, painting made with AI, right? Like, and kind of seeing is believing. It's, because what we're seeing, interestingly, are new kinds of paintings that never would have been made otherwise, using, you might say, this trope of the digital painting textures, and then looking quite persuasive. So it's hard. So I'm kind of a all of the above kind of person. And look at the hair being kind of, because the history of painting has its own kind of conversation when we think of painting, as just a category. So this, to me, it's in that conversation. And I think it has something to add, is my point. And if it has something to add, then there is a legitimacy there, I would argue. But I'm open to debate here. Look at how beautiful these look. So all of these put together, when you juxtapose them, you could just imagine this in a gallery sequentially. What a show, right? AI, family setting. And here is a strange thing, of course. This had an interesting title, The Mind of an Artist. So here, just a cool, this could be like an 18th century style painting here, minus the hoodie, of course. So cool work here from Strange Thing, delightfully painted, I dare say. And here is Demon Ego. There's a few more works in this interesting series, kind of combining shoes and people. Kind of looks like very new Midjourney. It's kind of, remember Demon Ego was putting out the call like, hey, what if I want to make my own AI algorithm? Something like that. And then Claire Silver weighed in there. So it looks like Demon Ego is experimenting with AI. So pretty cool work. Little Cakes, also the Little 8. So this is using M-props. And there's a tiny little 8 there with maybe, is that Little Cakes in the background? Not sure. Just another, the Lights 8, not the Little 8. That's 25 Tezos edition of 1. Here's Ocote with another in the Global South series. I don't think there is a link to it. I don't think this has been minted yet. Kind of an interesting piece with what look like fireworks there. And then people around a campfire there outside at night. Interesting AI, another AI painting here. And then you have Scamra with these beautiful textures here. Tuskegee Institute Stable Diffusion and Diffusers Textual Inversion. This collection is dedicated to hazels. So again, playing with the buildings here. I think abandoned buildings. Yeah, so cool subject. And here we do have it. Human Boy, edited in GIMP, made in Midjourney. Daytime perfection. And again, you see these cool kind of textures here and cool negative space there from Human Boy. And finally, No Hygiene, edition of 1 for 10 Tezos. So what, I think Yuri J is a huge fan, by the way, of No Hygiene, right? So, and here I think Yuri J would say, look, this isn't trying to be anything other than, native AI art, so to speak. I think Yuri J would be saying, this isn't trying to be painting. Again, I think there's room for everything here. And the aesthetics of the paintings, again, speaks for itself to a certain degree. Oz Alper, but very interesting work here from No Hygiene. And again, takes a certain amount of courage. Again, people from outside might be wondering, what the heck are you looking at here? But there is philosophy behind these images. A lot of these difficult images or images that look simple, just as there is in a contemporary art gallery where you go, what's going on here? Oftentimes there's philosophy, real deep thoughts, pushing aesthetic boundaries. So No Hygiene was look at this. I took some of the more experimental ones I could find. Again, another AI artwork by No Hygiene. This is an edition of 1, sold. Just listed for 9 Tezos. Here is Denise Sanchez Arte, Space Stenographers, acrylic and pencil on paper. So I don't think we saw this one. So another cool abstract from Denise. And here is Demon Ego, again, a physical from what looks like one side of the notebooks here. Cool contrast here. Putting certain layers on. Basically, the ink seems to have nothing to do with the watercolor, almost like a Sigmar Polka type look, with a little bit of collage for good measure. Looking great. Here's another Demon Ego work in process, I think. Those notebooks look great. Adam Lister Studio. So we've been looking at this artist here. We'll see if we can make it slightly bigger. Well, here's a close-up of these cool, what look like maybe $10 bills, eight note uncut currency sheet. So really just a cool style there. There's Rune Christensen. We've been looking at a ton. Another interesting use of space here. Almost kind of two-dimensional, almost medieval looking, even in the gold background there. Like how interesting, right? And look at how painterly it is. And then you even have, for modern sake, this kind of neon orange, underpainting here, almost like Harold Cohen to a certain degree, the way these edges are done, interestingly. Continuing on, here is Jesse Mackinson. We haven't looked at Jesse Mackinson's work for a while. Just a really cool, what I'd call, it's almost tempting to call these artists neo-surrealists, isn't it? Because surrealism is kind of back in fashion, so to speak, with the youth. I'm glad to report. Here's some more. JP Art Advisory posting these. Cool account on Instagram. Look at this interesting work here. So this is Leon.Foundation and Foundry downtown. Not exactly sure who the artist is here. It's not super clear. But here you see just interesting paintings, are they not? And here, It's Not Gallery, keeping things interesting. If you want to see, follow It's Not Gallery if you want to see a ton of new interesting artists. A lot of them having this kind of airbrush style, interestingly. So here's a doe, or a small deer. And here is Bondozo Bandido, going out but wanting to go in. Again, just edgy work by just the hugely prolific Bondozo Bandido account, whose name is, I think, Hermes. Here's Ricardo Passaporte. Almost looks like the same artist, but I don't think it is. Again, posted by It's Not Gallery. Again, these kind of airbrush artists, they'll post machine too. I think we might have some machine here. Babachik Mattia. So another really cool painting. This is 2024. Hugely prolific artist. How many likes on this thing? 989. That's pretty good. I'd almost expect thousands. Like, this artist does really well. Here's machine. Hot chick, airbrush on canvas. And so there is a tiny little chick, and there's money and a gun. So what I call the new humor. There is the new humor. I'm probably going to start a show and call it that. The new humor. There's something to be said here. And as you see there. Okay, so there's machine. And finally, retro sci-fi artworks by Japanese painter Hiroshi Nagai. Just a really nice, it means we're at the end here. If we're seeing these beautiful works and that plane going into the sunset there. Just beautiful works. Not sure if this artist, I assume, is contemporary. Just beautiful artworks there of palms and everything. The beach. And that is your mega show, my friends. I will keep them shorter from here on in. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, take care.